So I suppose what I'd say today and over the next 24 hours is that we are facing a number of extremes. We have fire, we have extreme storm conditions, and we have extreme heat. All of these provide significant challenges, both for Victorians but also for the range of our emergency services. In the west at the moment, we are in west and central Victoria. We're in severe fire danger period, and it's been like that all day. We've currently got some areas of significant wind in those areas, as well as dry lightning coming through places like the Otways and parts of central Victoria. That, of course, raises some concerns around the potential for new starts. As I said yesterday, we know the fires that we do have. What we don't know are those fires that could potentially start today with that dry lightning. Although there will be some rain coming through at certain points in the southwest, most of the rain isn't until later tomorrow morning and then into Melbourne sort of middle of the day. So we might see some assistance with the rain, but the wind and the storm conditions also make it difficult for us to use aircraft if new starts arrive. So it's still early in relation to the west. In terms of the east, we've seen on our fire ground, so we've got 10 going fires at the moment, some increased activity on some of those fires. And for the east, they don't get very much rain at all tomorrow, and their conditions continue right through to later tomorrow afternoon. So they'll have a hot evening, but also a very hot day tomorrow with no chance of any rain that comes through on those fire grounds over that 24-hour period. So those people in the east and East Gippsland area will need to continue to monitor those fire conditions. We know that there are some fires in their landscape, and as they heat up and as the conditions change, there is chances for columns to form, which we saw last night with the one of the fires that got into Watch and Act. In terms of heat, we're also very concerned at the moment around the heat. Some parts of Victoria, including Melbourne, we'll now have another really hot night tonight after a couple of days of really hot temperatures. For others in the state, they'll be facing an even additional hot evening. Now, with this heat, I think there are some serious heat concerns, health concerns that can arise. We're going to have incredibly humid conditions, and that's people will be starting to feel that now in certain parts of the state. Unprecedented levels of humidity. For most Victorians, we're not used to having these very high temperatures, really high humidity, which is what we're going to see. And tonight really does provide or pose some significant risks to individuals, particularly if you don't have air conditioning. So our messages around heat particularly, you've got to stay hydrated, try and stay cool, use wet towels, whatever you need to do to try and keep cool. We saw ambulance call-outs, particularly between 6 and 8 p.m. last night, go up significantly because of the heat. So people cannot underestimate the impact that the heat may have on them over the next 24 hours. So please take care and please ensure you also don't leave any children in a car. I think, as I said, we've got some unprecedented humidity in the system, and the Bureau will take you through in terms of that. But that does provide, it also provides some challenges with some of the fires if we end up with some column fires. So it's not something that normally humidity might help suppress fires, but that may not be the case in relation to this particular humidity, given the dryness of the conditions. And it's the dry land that's really driving much of these fires at the moment. In terms of the storms that we're going to expect to see, and unfortunately for our SES volunteers, about a week ago they had to deal with around 2,300 incidences. They've cleared all of those. It's been a mammoth effort by the SES, but they're likely to face similar numbers tomorrow. So it's a similar sort of storm conditions that we saw about a week ago. Same sort of rainfall, potential for hail, potential for some dust rain as well, depending on how the dust plays out over the next 12 hours or so. So again, people need to be prepared in relation to that. You can prepare your properties. You can put your car under cover. You can make sure your drains are cleared at home. There are things you can do to minimise the impact, particularly of that flash flooding. So, we're looking at somewhere around around, could be 10 to 30 millimetres, but with flash flooding more in the 60 to 80 millimetres. So some communities will be impacted by that. So my message to everyone again is, I know people probably are sick of seeing me, sick of seeing everyone behind me standing up, giving information and warnings and advice to people, but we can't let people become complacent. There is still significant fire risk, there's storm risk, there's heat risk. So we're asking Victorians to continue to do what they've done well, which is prepare, have a plan, listen to advice, follow advice that you're given, follow your emergency service radio, also your apps. This is really critical about saving your life and minimising impact in these particular conditions.
So there's a lot happening in our state at the moment, but the reality is, as I talk to you at the moment, we're in severe fire right across the state, and that's a concern for us. If I look at the state at the moment, we still have a watch and act in the current fire area at Bendock, which is in Gippsland, and that's a concern for us. That did a run last night, but the reality is our fire crews held those fires and protected those communities, which is a great news story. If I look at the other part of the state, and we've just heard the storm is going through with a lot of dry lightning, we had a significant fire in Smythesdale. We had about 47 trucks on that particular fire that ran fairly hard, but again, we've got on top of that. So we're monitoring new starts that are occurring as that dry lightning goes across the state at the moment. And indeed, that's now in Colac. We're looking at Lorne, some of those areas that we've got a very close eye on for any new starts, and we'll be doing everything we can to try and prevent any new starts from spreading. So finding them and then extinguishing them. If I look at tomorrow, and again, you've heard we've got a bit of everything: storm, rain, hail, but again for us, there's still severe fire weather in northern country, but it's only on about 10%, and northeast will be very high as well. We've made a decision not to call a total fire ban tomorrow because the humidity is up, the change is coming through, but nonetheless, particularly in the northeast and northern country, we do say to those communities, you're still very high from a fire danger point of view. It's hot, it's dry, there's some wind, it's hot, it's relatively dry, but as the Bureau just said, there will be humidity in it as well. But they're the areas that I think we need to watch out from a fire perspective tomorrow. So from my point of view, we still have significant fire risk today. That will last until about lunchtime tomorrow as the change comes through, and hopefully then we get a bit of a respite the next few days. Thank you.
Yeah, Andrew Crisp, Emergency Management Commissioner. So in Mildura last night, it only got down to 29 degrees, and that'll be the same situation for people in Mildura overnight tonight. In Melbourne City, it only got down to 23 degrees, so really hot as we've led into today. And for those that have been outside and realised it is very hot out there, again, those temperatures well up into the 40s when you get up into the north of the state, but it's also been hot across all of our state. So that hot weather, what it tends to do on days like this, it can have an impact on our energy systems and our power supply. Whether that's, we've heard about high winds already, particularly around that Smythesdale fire, Mount Gellibrand. So whether it's a tree across a power line. So we do have a situation at the moment in the state where we do have transmission lines that have been tripped. These are the transmission lines that feed power between South Australia and Victoria. This is naturally a priority for AusNet that manage the transmission systems, and they've got crews going out there to determine what in fact has tripped these particular transmission lines. So what that means for us, that at this stage we do have sufficient supply, but it does become a supply and demand issue. The energy market operator has pushed out messaging today in relation to what we can all do collectively in relation to supply and demand. So if we can reduce demand, we should ensure that we have sufficient supply as we move into the peak, which is between 4 and 8 p.m. And there are some very simple things that people can do. So it's about whether you need to have your dishwasher on, your washing machine, set your air conditioning ideally between that 23 and 26 degrees, and turn off the lights wherever you can. We know this can make a difference, and when we talk about fire, normally we talk about how we're all in this together, how we can all help each other out, how we need to stay across local conditions, and that's very much the case when we talk about energy. So there is an opportunity for people to make a difference in relation to demand. As I said, we lead up to this peak period between 4 and 8 p.m. this evening.